Thank you for tuning in to Day 7's YouTube channel. My name is Tanatswa Tavaziva. I'm Day 7's Data and Communications Director. And joining me today is our guest, health coach, yoga teacher, and PMDD Specialist, Rebecca Sairs. Rebecca, thank you so much for joining our reflection series.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Of course. Let's get started. What drew you initially to the field of health coaching?
Yeah, so in my late teens and 20s, I had a lot of health issues and I went to a lot of doctors, practitioners, and was on and on a lot of medications, but couldn't totally resolve my issues. And in my late 20s, I was really fortunate to work with a functional medicine practitioner, and a lot of her quote prescriptions were food and lifestyle related. And I found that they helped me tremendously. And I was able to get off a lot of my medications and just feel really good for the first time in a long time. And
Yeah.
obviously, there's a time and place for medications, no shade there if you're on them. But I was like, wow, this works. And I was a middle school teacher at the time working outside of Washington, D.C. And we had this huge snowstorm. And if you've ever lived in DC, you know they don't handle snow super great. Like everything closed down. I was out of school for like 2 weeks, I think. And during that time, I always say I read the whole internet because I didn't have anything else to do. And I discovered health coaching. And I was like, oh, this is cool. And yeah, from there, I went on to get a certification and sort of the rest is history, so to speak. But my own health journey got me into the practice.
Yeah, that makes sense. Especially like in healthcare, there's just like so many different like paths. And so that's great that you found something that was beneficial to you that you might not have known if you
Yeah,
hadn't run into that way, and found like victory in that. So that's great.
yeah.
What does a typical day look like for you?
Yeah, so I work for myself, and which is good and bad sometimes, I think. But I try to put like activities together. So meaning I have like a few days where I work with clients, and what that looks like is I work with them one on one for about an hour for each client. And some months I run group coaching, which is really fun. It like builds the community, which I like. Um, and then on the other days, I do a lot of marketing work because a lot of people don't really know what health coaching is, and you know trying to get the word out about what it is I do and how I help people. So and those days look like things like this, like calls, or I have my own podcast or social media work. Before COVID, it was like some in-person stuff, working. I've had what's the word, relationships with like doctors and other practitioners and stuff too. So it's just a variety of things.
Yeah. And you had talked about like part of marketing is like not a lot of people know what health coaching is. How do you define health coaching?
How do I define it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a health coach helps you make consistent behavior changes. So really, that's what I am. I'm a behavior change specialist because we just had the new year and resolutions are really difficult, and you make your resolution and you find by mid-January or by February you're not doing it anymore because it's hard. It's really challenging, and I feel like our culture, our society doesn't make it easy on us either. And
Yeah.
so my job is to come in and help people make consistent changes for things that are going to help them feel better. So that might be food, it might be sleep, stress, exercise, those kind of things.
Awesome. What's one thing that you wish people knew about health coaching or like a common misconception?
Yeah, a common misconception is that I'm a nutritionist. So, when you go to a nutritionist, like their main focus is food, and they're going to get you like a very specific way to eat based on you and your unique body, and like what they do is amazing, right? But again, like what I do is more like, okay, you know you want to eat this way. How can I come alongside you, and what can we do? How can we make a plan together to make
Yeah.
it sustainable? Because making changes to what you eat is typically kind of hard for most people.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I'm not a nutritionist. I'm helping you make consistent behavior changes, whether that be food. So it can be around food, but it can also be like relationships, or are you having fun? That's a big one.
Yeah.
Are you finding ways to relieve stress? Like, so it's a little, and all nutritionists are different. Some of them address these areas too, but it's a
Sure.
very holistic. It's not just around food as a health coach. So,
Yeah. And I
yeah.
imagine like all of those factors kind of play into habits as well, like the
Mm-hmm.
relational part and
Yes.
kind of your relationship to food and like different memories and things like that. So,
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, because we're very complex people, right? Like, we like to box things off, I think, with like, oh, food here, exercise here, but you're right, it all relates totally.
well, you had talked a little bit about resolutions, and like this and last year have been a strange couple of years. And it might be especially hard for people to figure out what resolutions they want to set and like what boundaries they want to maintain for themselves, or even just goals that they want to maintain for themselves for this year. How do you personally approach like resolutions and goals?
Yeah. So my first thing is like I want to think about how do I want to feel? I think a lot with like health. I don't know why I'm putting air quotes, but with health, it's like, health is all about food and exercise, and we do these things to lose weight, and we want to lose weight to look good.
Right.
I'm gonna say no. How do you want to
Yeah.
feel? And so that's what I think about first. How do I want to feel? If I'm feeling really stressed out because of everything that 2020 and 2021 has already brought, then what is going to help me feel that way? So I think that's the first thing I want to look at. And then like with clients, I do a lot of like visioning work. So in 6 months, in a year, in 2 years, like whatever time frame you want, what do you want to be doing? And then like keep asking yourself why. So maybe at first your first reaction is like, oh, I want to lose 5 pounds or 10 pounds, but why? What is that
Sure.
going to help you do? Is that going to help you be able to play with your kids without getting tired? Is that going to be able to help you show up to your job and like, do your best work for something that you're really excited about? So that's another thing, like why? Why do you want this? Why do you want to work out? Like, what's that actually going to help you do? So thinking about like, how do I want to feel? And then like, why? And just keep asking why? Because
Wow.
then when you don't want to do it, you can go back to your why. Well, maybe I don't actually want to, go for a jog today, but, in 6 months, I do want to be able to, whatever it is your why is. And that can be a little bit more motivating. So those are the
Yeah.
two things I look at.
I was gonna just like as you were speaking, it's a bigger picture, and
Mm-hmm.
it like speaks more to who you are. That was very like even switching that dynamic of like, do you want to play with your kids more is very inspiring versus like I want to look better than the next person, which can be fun too, but
Sure, sure. Yeah, usually those kind of things are like a spark to get you going, but like long-term sustainability, like usually if you have like a deeper why, that's gonna help push you through those hard times of when you
Yeah,
don't want to do it. So, yeah.
that makes sense. What advice would you have for our audience on how they can maintain their personal goals?
Yeah, so there's a few things. I would say if you're starting a new goal or a new habit, instead of trying to do the actual thing, try to build the habit itself. So, what I mean by that, let's say if you want to, let's say your goal is to run 30 minutes 5 days a week. Instead of starting out on Monday running 30 minutes, cut down that goal so significantly that you can do it in 2 minutes or less and start to build that habit. So, that might be that first week, all you do is put on your exercise clothes. And sometimes, like when I talk about this with my clients, they're like, but that doesn't help me. And it's like, well, yes, but if you try to do 30 minutes every day this week, chances are great you're not going to actually do it. Or if you do, next week it's going to fall off. So what you do is, yeah, 2 minutes, I put my clothes on, then the next week, okay, I feel really good about this. This is feeling a little easier then maybe all I do is put my clothes on and walk to the end of my road and come back. And then the next week you add on little by little by little. Because a lot of times it's hard to be, a lot of times like what you're really struggling with is like A, getting started, and B, making it a consistent habit. And if you make it so little that you're like, well, of course I can do anything for 2 minutes, then you take away some of that barrier. And if you see it as, okay, I was successful, I showed up for 2 minutes, I did what I said I was going to do, then that also builds momentum of like, oh yeah, I can do this. But if you're like, oh, I have to go run for 30 minutes, like I'm tired, I don't know if I have time for that. So that would be the biggest thing. And if you're like, oh no, that doesn't sound good, I would just say, try it, experiment with it. You might be surprised. So that's one thing. And then another thing is writing out what you're going to do. So I'm going to work out on whatever days it is. So maybe it is every day. And put the time and location. So I'm going to work out every day after I come home from work. Or I'm going to, put on my shoes and walk to the end of the road every day after I brush my teeth. And having like a specific time and location and just writing that out improves the chances that you're going to do it like tremendously, which is so simple, right? Like, but just having that like little plan can be really helpful. So those are 2 things I think I would start with if I was going to start a goal and try to maintain it consistently.
I love that. I love that. It's like a lot more experiential versus like another chore to add kind of like to your list.
Yeah.
That's great. That's great. I'm inspired myself. I'm like, ooh, what could I do? How could I try this out? I love that. I can put on clothes. Like, that's great.
Yeah, exactly. It's like taking those barriers away. And then like as it starts to become normal, then it's easier to add on little by little. Yeah.
That's great. Well, thank you so much for your time and sharing your knowledge and perspective with us. Where can our audience find you?
Yeah, you can find me on Instagram. I am at PMDD Health Coach, and then my website also, PMDD Health Coach. So
Awesome. And you have a podcast as well?
I do. And if you search for, it's called Power Over PMDD, or if you search for Rebecca Sairs, you should be able to find it on most podcasting apps. So
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.